Alright, so this is part one of the React app we're building. So basically we have a basic Bootstrap template, and right now we're showing a list of students. We have the student ID, the first name, last name, classroom, and action. So you can add a new student, you add an ID 7, press submit, you get a nice notification, you see it show up here. So the list refreshes. You can delete, you get an alert asking you whether or not to delete. You click OK, it will tell you that the student has been deleted, and you could also edit the student name and save that information so you see it show up there. Alright, so let's go straight to the students component. So that is in source, where is students, right? So let's see how it looks. Well, the first thing you see is the table, right? So in our render function, we have the sidebar and the navbar. So these are other components that have our menus. So sidebar, navbar. So students, you can see we have two main components. So within the students component, we have two other components. We have the edit students and list student. So the list student components is the component that's showing all the students that we pull in from our database, and the edit student is used to add or create a student. In the render function, you see that we have the list student here and the edit student here, and it shows conditionally depending on whether or not the state of show students is true or false. Alright, so in the list student component, we have our table. So we set up the table here, and then within the body we loop based on the students that we get from the database, and we just display so student ID, first name, last name, classroom. And then the actions, we have the edit and the delete actions. So all these things have been passed from the parent, which is student. So student.js. The first thing you would want to see is how we pull in data. Basically, we have the get students function. Basically, it's just fetching from an API, and it's setting the state to students from the response I get. So once we do that, well, we pass that to the students, and then within the students component, we can display the students that we pull. So the next thing is the edit. So let's look at the edit first. So to edit a student, the main thing, the function we're actually calling is view student. So you can see it here. We pass in the object, and we set that as the student model, and then we set show students to false. So remember, in our render, show students is what defines whether we show any list student components or the edit student component. Within where we render in the edit student component, we pass in the student model that we just set. Within edit student, we have a form. When we click submit, we are using the handle submit, right? So we actually call in save student from the main student component. So save student does the same kind of thing as get student. So it fetches and posts to this API, and then it would show you have a notification manager, whether it's student updated or student created. Then you reload the students, and then you set the state. So if you submit, you'd see the notification, and you'd also be able to see all the students. So to delete is pretty simple. You basically say window.confirm, confirm being the JavaScript confirm function, and then you have a delete student request. So that's all delete does, and once you click yes, it would show you the name that was deleted, and it would refresh the table. So as long as you can edit a student, you can add a student, right? So basically we just have an empty model right here, and once we press submit, provided we enter the required field, we'd be creating a student instead of editing a student, right? So within edit student component, the page title function, so you can always check that out. And also this is the back button, view all students. So view all students, right? So that just changes the state. And toggle the views, right? So it's either showing list of students or edit student component. It doesn't refresh the listing or anything. Alright, so that's part 1. We will do teachers next, and then courses, and we'll take it from there.